running a business is like one thing, but you realize you have people's livelihoods behind that. You know, the people who are actually using this to pay their bills. And if you don't succeed in keeping this business going, they're not going to have a job.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of responsibility. So that it's not just like the whim of wanting to be creative and wanting to, oh, I want to own my own business. It's also being responsible to the people who work for you.
Welcome to another episode of Functional Conversations, brought to you by The Function. I'm your host, DJ Shaky. Today we're coming from Creme Caramel, Los Angeles, and the owner of this fine establishment is an old friend of mine, Kristine De La Cruz.
Hi, thanks for having me.
I kind of start the same way with everybody.
Mm.
Where do you feel your creative journey started?
Oh man, I think it started pretty early in life. Like, me and my parents were, like, they met here in San Francisco. Met in the United States, but they're both from the Philippines. And so they didn't have community. So when they had kids, they also didn't trust other people. So they also didn't want us to go, like, have playtime with other people. So me, my brother and sister, and my cousin were each other's playmates. So we had to be pretty creative. Like, this is pre, like, having TV 24/7. So we would create our own restaurants and bar. Playtime was like the biggest part of it. Like, I would create the scenarios and my brother and sister and my cousin would like follow along. So I think it started pretty early. I've always liked, I think the entrepreneurial side of owning a business. Pretty early on, I wanted to own a food establishment. And so I've always wanted to, I remember my dad came home one time with blueprints for someone who was like looking for investment to open up a lumpia house USA. And I remember thinking, like, at 9 years old, I was like, oh, I could be like the cashier and I could take people's orders. And so I've always liked the entrepreneurial side of it. I think the creativity came from there too.
So as early as 9 years old?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay.
Pretty
Okay. Aside from like playing, were you into things like dance, music? Did you play any instruments?
We were in a dance crew in high school, and music. We always grew up listening to 90s hip hop and R&B. That was like, our generation.
It was just hip hop and R&B at the time.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And then I know that's true. It was just that generation.
Yeah.
And then I was also the for Cal Poly Pomona. I put together the PCN.
Okay.
So I wrote the script, and it was the first musical. So we did a musical for PCN.
Wow. Okay.
Because at the time we had a whole bunch of people who were sang really well. So
the 90s. Look up like 90s Filipino singing groups and things like that. Yeah.
And so that was also tapped into my creativity too. I think I've always liked reading and writing too. And
okay.
I think a lot of there's a lot of creative aspects of throughout my life that I've always like dabbled in and tried to like be a part of. I was in a few game shows in college. And also
like TV game shows?
Yeah, TV game shows.
That's amazing.
Because I was like, oh, I want to earn money, but I want to earn money fast. Let me get on a game show so I can actually get something.
Which game shows?
And the thing is, I don't know if it's a bad luck, but every game show I was in college canceled the season after. I was in Categories. Remember that game, Categories?
Yeah.
They used to have like a game show called Categories.
Okay.
And then I was also on Shopping Spree, it's not Supermarket Sweeps. Everyone's like, oh, Supermarket Sweep. That's the one where you went like in the grocery store. That's not the one I was on. Shopping Spree was like matching like shopping items to like another person's like what they wish list and stuff.
Right.
And then I also was on Family Feud with my family. And then what was more recently? I don't know, like my brain is like so like it really just dropped.
How many in your family then?
There's three of us. So I'm the oldest of three, and my sister and my brother is next.
And her brother Kyle was in a dance crew with me.
Yeah. So. Yeah.
Just making sure there was someone I didn't know.
Yeah. So that's three.
Okay. So at this point, you're going through school, college. What does that look like for you? What do you do for school? Aside from like the PCN stuff, like.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, it's like I was part of Barcada Club at Cal Poly Pomona, and growing up with an immigrant family, of my parents were here in the United States. They were very strict growing up, so like we snuck out a lot during high school. College was where I really like socialized a lot more because it's kind of like, oh, I have the excuse of school.
Right.
So I majored in socialization and graduated in 5.5 years versus the 4 years. Partly because it's college was the time for me to have fun. But
Right.
the thing is, the skills I learned while I was while I was in Barcata Club, because I was also an officer,
Mhm.
was things that I applied to like entrepreneurship today.
Okay.
So it's like as an officer and on the advisory and actually on the board, it gave me skills to talk to people, handle like large amounts of money.
Mhm.
So it actually kind of like pushed me in that road of wanting to go into entrepreneurship.
Okay. So when you graduated, what did you do first?
I graduated. Well, my first job out of college was working for DreamWorks. I think DreamWorks was just first year, it was like within the first year of opening. So it was when DreamWorks used to be DreamWorks Corporate and DreamWorks Animation. So it
Okay.
used to be two separate like companies within one company. And then while I was there, they merged the two, and then we were all sent to the DreamWorks Animation Studio. So I was working in HR, and it wasn't because I went to DreamWorks first as an intern prior to graduating, and then since I had such a good relationship with the HR people, they knew I wanted to go into marketing because that was my degree. But there wasn't any openings at the time, so they said, it's like, well, we really love you. Like, if you want to start, a job here in HR,
Right.
it was like that was my first opportunity.
I mean, you were already kind of in a creative field, just not the actual creative.
Yeah,
position
exactly.
yet,
Right. Exactly.
Did you end up switching over to marketing?
No, actually, I ended up I was at human resources for a while, and marketing positions weren't opening up. So they actually asked if I wanted to. There was a job opening at BMG. I don't know if it's still around.
I don't even know. If
Yeah,
that's
so BMG used to be like a big music label,
Right.
and one of their adult contemporary labels, Wyndham Hill, it had Barry White and a few other people that I don't remember. Yanni was one of the big ones.
I think I've heard that name in over a decade.
Yeah. So that adult contemporary label, they were looking for a sales assistant. So sales is adjacent to marketing, but not marketing. But
Right.
I went into that job. But that was also a lesson in like, oh, salespeople can be kind of crazy. And so I was working for there, and then so I was in entertainment still. That lasted, I think, a year and a half too, and then I ended up leaving that job because the boss was crazy. But I went to I lived somewhere. I worked somewhere closer, and I was in marketing for a payroll company.
Payroll.
So,
Okay.
no, it wasn't a payroll company. It was a data processing company. So it was like doing marketing for them.
So that's a little opposite, because then you're now doing something, trying to be creative for something that's not inherently
Yeah, exactly.
creative.
Yeah.
Right. So how many jobs did you essentially work?
I've had a lot of jobs.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've had a lot of jobs since I was 14. I think if you don't count the slave labor that my parents, got from us. My first job when I was 14 was 15, was working at Wet Seal, and they don't have Wet Seal anymore, right?
I don't know.
It's like,
It's right
one
there
of
with
those,
like
yeah.
merry-go-round and oak tree.
Yeah, exactly. It was around that time. So,
But there's still Forever 21.
There is Forever 21 stuff. That was Forever 21 was more recent though. So, but Wet Seal, and then after that, I was a character at Disney.
Okay.
So I was in the character department, and then I was also a bank teller. I worked at a party store. I was a medical transcriptionist. I think part of it has always been jumping around from different jobs, partly because I wasn't finding what I wanted, but ultimately I'm being my own boss and opening my own small business. I had always wanted to open up a food-based business ever since I was younger, and I always felt like that was my calling. But my job prior to owning this business, I was working as a road manager and A&R for a music production company. So I used to travel on the road like 36 weeks out of the year.
Right.
So I had, it was golden handcuffs, and it paid well. I was traveling. I got to use my miles to, do personal travel.
Yep.
So there was a lot of benefits to it, but I wasn't, in 2008, it felt like during the economic crisis that we had in the recession, my boss made the decision, which he had every right to, because it was a small business, to let go one of the girls in our company to save on expenses. and I understand that as an owner, and I didn't at the time, but I also felt like I don't know if I want someone else's decision to affect my well-being, my path. And at the time, I started dating my partner in life and also in business, Sean, and he was like, he was the first person that said, I said, you think I want to like start a food-based business? And he's like, yeah, go and do it. He was the first person to ever say that, because everyone else is like golden handcuffs, like you have a good job, don't don't rock the boat, you keep on doing what you're doing. But because he said, yeah, you can do it, it's not even like a strong push. He just said, yeah, pursue what you want.
Yeah.
It felt like I was like, okay, I have to go ahead. So and that's kind of where it all snowballed, and here we are today. We started in 2010, and we've been around for 15 years.
Okay. I mean, I was gonna ask what kind of sparked you to just get up and do it, but you kind of answered that.
Yeah.
But how did you kind of decide on what you were gonna sell and what the shop was gonna be?
Well, I knew I wanted to do a food-based business. I didn't even have a product at the time, but I knew I had started a business plan, because being a business major, I knew that I had to start, with some kind of organization and plan, which is not like how my normal MO anyway. But also prior to that, I guess I did have another business too, where we used to throw parties. Okay. So we used to do, and that started off only because I wanted to celebrate a birthday. And so me and a few friends who had birthdays in May, was like, hey, do you guys want to put together like a night where we just invite all our friends? We have a free happy hour, for like the first hour, get everyone super drunk, so they spend a lot of money later, and then we'll just have a party. And then that lasted for a good 3 years. Like we did like parties like 5 times out of the year, and it was like a good party it was just because it was all people we knew. It was like everyone came out, and you came to the parties and stuff. That kind of like was maybe my first like foray into entrepreneurship, but that wasn't serious. That was just for fun, because I wanted to do something fun. I was like, oh, let's like bring our friends into it too.
How did you end up deciding on the product? Let's get back to
so the business plan came first, and I was just like testing. I was doing donuts. I was testing. I did these 18-inch gingerbread cookies, thinking, oh yeah, someone's gonna want to buy a gingerbread cookie in the middle of May. No, it ended up, and actually that year, since I was testing product, I gave gingerbread cookies to all of the kids, like all of my friends' kids and my like family kids and stuff. And I'm like, oh, you guys don't want this, but I'm gonna give it to you anyway. But then we settled on the creme caramel, because I actually made the leche flan, the Filipino flan, for Sean's mom, because Sean's mom is gluten free. She doesn't have celiac disease, but she like gluten free for dietary reasons, for health reasons too. And because of that, I remember making it, and it was my first time actually making it. I'm like, this is like it's like basically ice cream, so you could do other flavors. And I was looking to see if anyone did custards and flans in different flavors. And at the time, there was one company that did, and they were called Flan King, and they were at farmers markets. They only did a small amount of like flavors, and then we were delving into more like, oh, let's do bread pudding too, because like as an alternative, not just flan.
Right.
And so and then it became like, oh, the whole category of custards, which includes like bread pudding, custard pies, quiches, like everything that's like it. So that's kind of like how we started formulating, okay, this is what our products can be. And actually we took a page from sprinkles too, because at the time sprinkles was really popular, and they basically took one bakery item and built a whole business around it. So we took a dessert category and then just built our business around it, but we focused on Filipino-American flavors.
Right. So is it a little conscious effort to, even though it's Filipino based, you don't market it as necessarily Filipino?
We don't. We do. Like, I mean, that's one of the things that it's a subtle nod to like Filipino. Like, I mean, we have like colors as part of.
Pandesal now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, actually,
not subtle, because we actually say like it's a Filipino flan.
Okay.
And we always like talk about like we're a custard dessert bakery that is based on Filipino flavors. But our business in general like has always. It's a little not odd, but we focus around something that not necessarily is everyone's clamoring for. No one likes like, oh, I want to go get flan. Like it's kind of like something you have as ancillary.
Yeah.
But when we started out in farmers markets to test it to see how people would like it. And ironically, we didn't have any Filipino flavors at the time. We only had vanilla, coffee, chocolate, creme caramels, and then we had vanilla, ube, and it was a vanilla, chocolate, and caramelized bacon bread pudding. So those were the only
You said
6
caramelized bacon?
caramelized bacon.
Caramelized bacon.
Yeah. And
Okay.
so that was
On a
our
flan?
no on a bread pudding.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you still have it?
No,
think
we
I've
don't.
okay.
You know what? Maybe we should bring it back. It's
Yeah.
been a while. Like I think we have to bring it back. It was one of our original things that we did for the longest time, and I think bacon became so overplayed because it was at the time that everyone started putting bacon in everything, and so that's when we stopped because they're like everyone's doing it, but there's not as many bacon things anymore. So I think we'll bring it back. So we're back.
Yes.
So those were the 6 flavors, and we didn't start, but we were saying that it was Filipino flan based.
Right.
But we didn't start doing Filipino flavors until we went to FPAC. So we went to the Filipino festival, and then we met John Eric and Kristine of Park's Finest.
Okay.
And they were opening up their store, and they asked us if we would do the ube and the buko flan that we did for the event. And that's kind of like where it snowballed from there. And our best seller is our ube upside down pie, which was also a mistake too, because I was making the ube flan for Park's Finest, but I was baking by myself at the time. And, flan is upside down. So like you cook it upside down, but the top itself is on the bottom. But because it's wholesale, it was a little toasty and like not like smooth. So I'm like, oh, I can't waste it because I can't give this to them either. So we were at farmers market, so I just put together a crust and let's call it upside down pie, and you just sell it, and we'll just see how it does. And it sold out. Then I was like, okay, well, I guess we'll just keep on doing it. And ends up being our bestseller. So it was a mistake that we, reinvented into something that.
Right. Right. I mean, that's almost like a popular story where things come out of accident.
Nothing. Yeah. And it was a happy accident. And thankfully, it's like our best-selling product, and people come back for it.
So when I was saying it's not inherently Filipino, I mean, like, I guess the logo and your branding and a lot of that.
Right.
It's
not like it says
clean,
like
simple.
Tita Christine's,
Right. But obviously, like this is the ube horchata.
Yeah.
With espresso shots on top.
Right.
Which is delicious.
Thank you.
I've had some of the other flavors. When did you start incorporating more of the Filipino flavors?
It was really after that time where
just that FPAC
FPAC because after we did it that time and the ube upside down pie did so well, we started incorporating more. And part of it is like we didn't go into it thinking that we're going to be a Filipino-American, like this is going to be our representation, but we were doing flavors of that, so it felt like okay, we're entering that space now, and people know that I'm Filipino, so it became like a natural segue. And then it happened within like the first year that we opened, so it's like it happened relatively early on. But at the same time, you're right, it wasn't our focus at the very beginning. It's not saying I'm going to be a Filipino bakery. Right. It was just like, well, this is based on Filipino flan. We weren't saying we were a Filipino bakery. But now we really put that into our explanation of our business, and like we use Filipino and American flavors, so it's the two things that I grew up with, and at the same time, it's been gratifying to me as a business owner, because a lot of times, especially in the area that we're in Sherman Oaks, we're not like in the middle of Panorama City or in Hi-Fi. We're an area that doesn't necessarily have a lot of Filipinos. So a lot of people who are coming to our store for the first time are trying Filipino food and flavors for the first time through our store. Right. And these are kids. So these are kids who are going to grow up thinking, oh yeah, I've had ube before, and it's not like foreign to them. Yeah. So
without getting like super, super detailed, but in a nutshell, what was the process like of opening the shop, your first one?
Oh, the first one was after we were looking for a kitchen to support our farmers markets, and that's the only reason why we opened it. And 6 months later, we ended up closing all our farmers markets because we were making more money in the retail shop than we were at the farmers markets. So that's how, and it was part of our growth plan too. It was like, okay, we're going to go farmers markets, we're going to open up a retail shop, and then ended up like being that segue. So that's part of the reason why we opened that store.
Okay, and then you had multiple locations because you opened.
Frankie Lucy. Yeah, we opened Frankie Lucy with a partner. That didn't work out partly because of did really well that first year, and then that January following that first year, our landlord saran wrapped the building, put scaffolding up to renovate the whole building without telling us and notifying us, and so it made it look like we were closed. So all the momentum that we had, it just went away because people thought we were closed. And then they closed the parking lot, which was the access. And Silver Lake, parking is premium. So it's like it took away the access to our parking. So it snowballed from there. It's just like we couldn't get back after that. Right. And then, it was just like mistakes that we made like so early on. I think we get caught up in trying to grow so much. And I think you hear that, if you're going to be a business owner, you have to keep growing. You have to keep doing things that, grow your business. But I realize now, 15 years later, the more that I'm, as opposed to trying to get more outside customers, and then we talked about social media a little bit, and the reason why I'm taking a step back is because I'm focusing more on the 5-mile radius of our business versus outside of that, and really trying to focus on being a part of the community versus trying to get customers from other parts of LA to come over.
Right. I mean, you could still do both, but it is a time. It is time consuming. Social media is definitely it is time consuming.
It's the focus too. It's like, me and Sean are the administrators of our business. Thankfully, we have really good supportive staff. Our front of house managers are really great, and our back of house manager is really great. But at the end of the day, it's us making the strategic decision. So we have to figure how to make things work.
So that brings me to the next question, really. As an owner, what are some of the ups and downs of working with different employees, different personalities? What are some things you deal with?
Yeah, I think we're really lucky. A lot. Our baking team has been with us for almost, it's 9 years already.
Oh,
so
wow.
Almost 10 years. Yeah, they've been with us for a long time. And then a lot of our employees, one of our employees started with us when she was 15, and she's 20 now.
Oh.
So it's and then a lot of the people have been with us for years. And the newest person is our front of house manager, and I think she's only been with us for over a year now.
How many people are you employing?
We employ 12 people.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, you said some of your bakers have been with you for 9+ years. Do they have more input in creating the different flavors, different recipes, things like that?
It's not like they're not encouraged, but our production schedule is so tight. We just make what we make.
Okay.
But when we do bring in new recipes and we do try to do new things, they're open to do that. So,
okay.
And actually, we're going to be making some changes in the store too. So we're going to be offering some different things.
Going back to when you first opened the retail side, outside of the farmer's market, was it mainly you coming up with the different recipes and concepts?
Yeah, so all the custards are, the custard base is based on my tita's leche flan. So her and my uncle, they had a business up in San Francisco where they just made vanilla leche flan and vanilla creme brulee, and they sold it to restaurants. So it was a small business out of their house. It wasn't even like they advertised it. So I took their recipe and then I built upon that, our custard base.
Added the flavors.
Mixed with it a little bit to make it our own, to make it a little bit more creamier. Also, all the custard recipes are my recipe, and we have a quiche that's really good. It's a puff pastry base, and the inspiration for that is when I used to travel. I went to a bakery in Sioux Falls, North Dakota, South Dakota.
You've had that one for a while, right?
What's that?
You've had that one for a long time.
Yeah.
Right? Okay. I think I've had that.
Yeah. Well, the reason why it's on the menu is because when I used to travel a lot, I went to Sioux Falls, and there was a bakery where the owner was a pastry chef from New York, and she made this quiche that had a puff pastry crust, which was wonderful. And I'm like, the one reason why I don't like quiche is because I don't like the pie crust. I don't like pie crust in general. I like it flaky. And so when she made it, I was like, if I'm going to make this, I'm going to copy this and make it. So that's what I'm making too. So a lot of inspiration comes from traveling and from eating out too. But a lot of it is but all the bar cookies and the coffee cakes were from our previous bakers. They brought those.
So what's the main focus now? It's essentially the custards and drinks?
Right now, we've become the coffee shop for the neighborhood, and people walk here. People are, driving in before they go to work, and I think that's where our strength is coming, because our thing is that we don't spend a ton on advertising. We don't spend a lot of time on social media, but we've developed enough time here in this area that people who have been here spread the word on their own, and our thing is that if we get into the store, we got you. This is you're our customer forever.
Yeah.
Because as soon as you can walk through the door, one of our biggest things that we're trying to build relationships and not be transactional. Because we have enough of, do you want fries with that? We have enough of, people were faceless behind a counter. People here know our staff's names, and we know our regulars' names too. And if you go to our store often enough, we are happy to call that out. It's hey, you got whatever. And I think people don't get that enough in their relationships outside of the house.
Yeah.
So it's that's kind of what we want to build as a community here.
Outside of employees, for people who are maybe looking to open their own business and whatnot, what are some things people don't even think about when it comes to opening?
I think it's enough plan. It's money at the end of the day. And also having a team of people or even just another person to help you, because we know a lot of people who are in the business by themselves, and it can be hard to make decisions on your own. And if you have someone that you can bounce ideas off of, or an advisory, like, couple of friends who are like not necessarily in your business, but someone who can kind of like give you feedback. Because when you're working in your own business, you can feel like you're on an island and you're talking in a vacuum, and you're like, the what's it called? The spiraling happens because you just think about like, oh, okay, this has to happen, this has to happen, this has to happen, and you can kind of like get into this mode of like just being in your own space. But knowing that if you have someone that is a partner in the business or someone that you can ask for feedback, and you don't feel you feel less alone. So having a good team or people that you can get feedback from, or at least a partner that can, share responsibilities, share the burden too, because it's not even just financial burden. It's like it's mental burden too, because being, running a business is like one thing, but you realize you have people's livelihoods behind that. The people who are actually using this to pay their bills. And if you don't succeed in keeping this business going, they're not going to have a job. Yeah. So there's a lot of responsibility. So that it's not just like the whim of wanting to be creative and wanting to, I want to own my own business. It's also being responsible to the people who work for you. And that's what we foster here at the store, is that we're very supportive of our staff. We know that this is just a waypoint for some of them, that they're going to go do other things outside of the store. And they do have other pursuits. We have like people who are actresses, people who are assistant directors, people who are like social media managers too, and they want to do other things. Or people who just want to live their lives, but they're looking just for a solid place to live and work. And that's what we hope to be able to provide for them.
Is anyone full-time or anything like that?
Yeah, so we have like 6 people, 3 or 4 people that are full-time.
So when they're full-time, does that come with like, do you offer benefits?
No, we don't have offer benefits though, but we have like different types of benefits. Like we give them vacation time and sick pay. Okay. So, but I don't, and 401k too. Okay. So access to a 401k, but I don't have like health benefits. That's like goal. I mean, if ultimate goal, I want to make this a co-op. I want this to be a workers owned business. Okay. That's like ultimate goal. Like I'd like to.
I guess, so this kind of goes to what I asked a lot of people too. Since you have 401k for your employees, what does retirement look like for you?
Oh man. I mean, we don't have kids. So like for me and Sean, it's just like making sure that we're taken care of, but realizing how expensive it is to live here in the United States. I think of like, do we live somewhere else where it's cheaper? Do we live in the Philippines where I've never lived before? Like I've always lived in California, and then it's like, or do we live across the border in Mexico, or do we live somewhere else where it's cheaper? But at the same time, it's like my family's here, so it's kind of like I want to do that, but realistically, does it make sense with the people that are around us? And we're such Filipino culture is so ingrained where you are going to be near your family, you're going to be around the people that you love and stuff. But I do have, because there's a lot of friends that I also are single and have no kids too. I think of like, let's buy some horse property, build some shipping container homes, and just have like a retirement community commune that we can all be together and support each other. Because I think our generation is different from the boomer generation, where we have a lot of friends that we're really, really close to, and also have established since our early years. So as opposed to living by yourself, somewhere, why not live in a community of friends who are all in the same boat, and then hire one doctor to take care of you?
Right. So I know you mentioned 401k. I'm assuming you have that for yourself. What do you have? Anything else?
We have life insurance. We have a whole life insurance and some in retirement investments and stuff. But that has only been more recently. It's not at the very beginning. I had a pension that was a lot of money, and that's kind of like the nest egg that started the business. So it's basically all of our retirement and savings went into this business to start. So it's just more recently that we started reinvesting. Okay. So
do you work with financial planners and stuff like that? Yeah. So they set up your insurance and all that sort of thing too. Yeah. Okay,
so cool. But we're actually in the process of switching our whole life to term, because we realize we're spending a lot of money on the whole life. Even the whole life gets a return on your investment. Yeah. We want to invest that in something else. So that's another job I used to have. I used to have my real estate license because my dad's a terrible business person, so I didn't learn from him. But I wish I also kept that real estate license too. But
my dad was selling insurance, and he, before he passed, he was always telling me like, oh yeah, you should do this, but he never like broke it down to me
Yeah.
as to why or
Yeah.
even how. And then
Yeah.
he didn't just like say,
It-
"Or let's do this." Just
And it's funny because like that information that was never passed along, like
Mhm.
our parents' generation never sat us down and taught us things. Like
Yeah.
it's just kind of like figure it out, but you have to do it. Like
He's
you know,
like,
it's
"Yeah, you
like
should
get
do this."
straight A's, but we're not going to give you the tools
Yeah.
to help you out.
Right. And then so when my dad passed too, my uncle kind of like picked up a lot of his clients and
Yeah.
just kind of switched it over. And then but he didn't really try to like push me on it either. I
Yeah.
had to ask him. I'm like, hey, I have this policy and I want to just move it.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
can you do it? And he's like, oh yeah, I'll take a look. And he did it. So he made his commission off me. But still, and look, you're young. Like no, someone can mention it, but unless somebody like kind of tells you.
Yeah.
So
That's what, like, I mean, financial literacy is one of the things that, as like my nephews and stuff, it's like we want them to really understand. Like, it's like my parents. I remember, like, my mom used to guilt me. She's like, "Oh, you guys are going to take care of me when you're older," but I realized that was so unfair for them. I know it's a Filipino culture to take care of your elders and stuff, but it's so unfair to do that because it's like it's putting a lot of burden on your children when it's a different type of living than in the Philippines. In the Philippines, you could absolutely do it because you live in a community where everyone lives together and you could support each other that way. America is different where it's a lot more expensive and you have to be able to like have something established prior to you retiring, not just think that your kids are going to take or have kids because they're going to take care of you,
Yeah.
So it's kind of like that type of thinking we're changing with our nephews and our nieces and stuff. It's like you guys shouldn't have to think about us when we're older. You guys, take care of yourselves. We'll think about what we have to do to take care of ourselves.
Yeah. So 2 more quick ones before we get out of here.
Yeah.
What, and you kind of mentioned it a little bit, but what do you envision as the future of your business?
I see this business growing in customer base, but not necessarily growing in like physical location. I'm no longer pursuing like additional locations. What we want to do is establish our location as the neighborhood coffee shop and dessert location. We're going to be introducing other desserts shortly too. So hopefully that'll be another thing for people to like have occasions and stuff. But at the end of the day, we just want to keep on doing what we're doing and, and be able to provide a good, safe space for people in the local community. I think that's one of the things that has always been a focus of ours is to have a good working environment for our staff, but have a good environment for our customers to come into.
All right. And the last thing, no matter how cliche it sounds, what are words of advice you would share with people?
Oh, you know what? Just be freaking kind to people. I think in your life, in your work, it's like, everyone is going through something. I think we have the tendency, especially if it's a hard day on ourselves, like to bite back at people. And I think treating people with kindness it weighs so much heavier than yelling at someone. I mean, when you treat someone kindly, it weighs in their heart more than yelling at someone. I feel like it has a lasting impact. That's rude.
Yeah.
It was for no reason.
Yeah, I know, right?
That. Yeah.
Someone was not being kind.
No, yeah, that was case in point. That's not being kind. I put salt in their coffee skin.
Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to go inside and
Okay.
maybe get something to go.
Yeah.
And thanks for taking the time out. And cheers. Creme Caramel. I'm just going to put your address in the... We're just going to...
5616 Kester Avenue, Sherman Oaks, California. Open
Yes.
7 days a week, Monday through Friday until 6 o'clock, Saturday, Sundays till 6 o'clock.
Awesome.
Thanks, man.
See you next time.